Declinations of the Sun in the Horoscope, created, directed, and produced by Reverend Dr. Dikki-Jo Mullen. In this video, Dr. Mullen will discuss the declinations of the Sun, which include galactic center, anti-center parallel, contraparallel, and I will replay this intro at the end of the video to give you time to stop the video if you want to capture the information on this page. And now we will listen to Dr. Mullen's lecture.
This is Reverend Dr. Dikki-Jo Mullen in Orlando, Florida, with a special astrology study of the declinations by sign in your horoscope. In the ephemeris, this is the book astrologers use, the tables, latitude and longitude are mentioned. Now the latitude of the planet is the declination north or south of the sun's declination, and the longitude is the normal sign you usually use. Most people stop there. They'll say the moon will be in Aries, or Mercury will be in Sagittarius, or whatever is apropos to the birth chart, and that really gives the heart of the birth chart's message. However, in looking at the tables in the ephemeris, most people are told by those that they are learning astrology from, or just the techniques, to overlook the declinations. It's almost like they vanish or don't exist. I mention them on my Facebook posts every morning as parallels and contraparallels, and they are important for subtleties. The definition of a declination is the bending or sloping downward deviation from the horizontal. In astronomy and astrology, this is the angular distance of a heavenly body north or south of the celestial equator. The Earth is tilted on its axis at approximately 23 degrees 26 minutes. And on most globes, you will find the Tropic of Cancer at 23 degrees 26 minutes north of the equator, and conversely the Tropic of Capricorn at 23 degrees 26 minutes south of the equator. The geographical area between these two global markers is known as the tropics. Another way of looking at this is that the point where the sun is directly overhead and the furthest north that it follows of the equator is important. At this time, the sun enters the sign of Cancer, generally about June 21st. The longest day of the year, and that's the summer solstice. And it enters Capricorn on December 21st, with the sun directly overhead at 23 degrees 26 minutes south of the equator. Keep in mind that if we did not have the Earth tilting, declinations would not be present and we wouldn't have seasons. The seasons of the year, which correlate with the seasons of our lives, are the secret to understanding why declinations are important. The celestial equator is a plane projected outwardly into space from the Earth's actual equator. A parallel is when two planets or points are at the same or very nearly the same degree in either north or south in reference to the celestial equator. And we have a slide to show you that shows the exact points here. So if, say, you were to have the sun at 23 degrees south, 26 minutes, and Mercury at 23 south, 25 minutes, use a very, very small orb or variation, those would be said to be parallel. And they are extremely significant as far as being like a strong conjunction. The contraparallel is like an opposition, and that's when the declinations are opposite. Say you might have Mars at 20 north Leo 09, and then you might have Saturn at 20 south Leo 10, or very close, or 09. Just use again a very tiny orb or sphere of distance from the perfect parallel or contra-parallel. And this gives you the feeling of something being stronger or standing still. Speaking of standing still, another word that's important in understanding how to read declinations is the word solstice, which means standing still. The summer solstice on the first day of summer, approximately June 21st, is when the sun stands still north of the celestial equator, and the winter solstice, this is in the northern hemisphere, of course, is 23 degrees 26 minutes south. And this is actually very close to the solstice point for several days. Not only the sun, but the major planets will have also solstice or standstill moments when they cross that point. These are very significant. It's like things are on hold. Gemini and Cancer are the solstice signs in the northern hemisphere, Sagittarius and Capricorn for the southern hemisphere, for my listeners in New Zealand and Australia. Big astrology communities there. By the way, I appreciate all of you, although you always comment that I tend to neglect you, so I just didn't there. Out of bounds, this is critical. It's abbreviated OOB, and that's an event where the moon or a planet goes beyond the declination reached by the sun. Now the sun's declination, and this is all relative to the earth, of course, is 23 degrees 26 minutes. Only Saturn and Neptune don't occasionally go out of bounds, but the moon and the other planets frequently will go rogue and exceed those. The most extreme is when Mars is out of bounds. Moments of extreme violence, war, revolution, mass shootings, we can predict this if the planet Mars is out of bounds. And again, you can see this easily just by looking at the declinations in this book, the Ephemeris. This is one of several different editions. This is one that happens to be for the entire 21st century that I frequently will use. The inhale is like facing the energies of the galactic center as a planet goes into the out of bounds, and then exhaling with relief as it leaves. But do watch to see. The moon and Venus out of bounds can be very extreme for relationship issues, real estate, and family life, and anything to do with the food and water source. Jupiter going out of bounds can relate to religious wars, differences of philosophy. Pluto was out of bounds from 1938 to 1953 at the beginning of the atomic era, when the first atomic bombs were dropped, but it won't be out of bounds again for centuries, so don't worry about it. But it was very interesting that during the entire time period when Pluto was discovered and when the bombs in World War II changed everything in nuclear power, put everything in a whole new scale in terms of what we're able to do with and to the earth, occurred under a Pluto out of bounds. I just thought that was extremely interesting. Something else that ties in with the same idea of looking beyond the usual scale in the ephemeris is to look at the galactic center and the anti-center. The galactic center of the Milky Way is about 27 degrees Sagittarius 4 minutes. It moves very, very slightly over a century. And it is, by the year 2100, it'll be at 28 degrees Sagittarius. And this is a very intense, extreme point. Anything that's related to the center of the Milky Way, it's kind of like it's falling into a black hole of energy, absorbed at a higher scale. The anti-center has to do with rejecting or pushing away, and that, of course, is exactly opposite. And we have those degrees listed on the slide for you. Something else that's sort of interesting to look at in terms of new interpretations and considerations is a planetary umbrella. You have to know your progressions to do this. This is getting into intermediate astrology. And the progressed moon, as it travels to its northern extreme, the highest or last planetary nodal declination, reaches its zenith. The zenith, that happens 2 to 3 times in a lifetime, is going to be a time where there can be significant life events occurring. And this can happen on several different levels. A planetary bowl is the same as the umbrella, but it's when the progressed moon goes to the bottom of the out of bounds extremes. And this seems to relate a lot to old records being broken, whether it's in speeding or sports. The planetary umbrellas will occur in that direction. So this is something small and different to consider as you look at your ephemeris. It looks boring at first, except for number crunch people, but it's actually a tremendously intriguing book because there are so many potentials and details to uncover the more that we look through it and read it. On the computer programs, there are potentials to put in the declinations and to look at them, but they don't seem to be as pronounced or easy to see, at least not for this astrologer, as when looked at in the tangible book. So I hope this has helped you a bit to look a little further beyond the sun, moon, and rising sign, the points that mostly start off our astrological studies.
In this video, Dr. Mullen will discuss the declinations of the sun, which include galactic center, anti-center parallel, contraparallel, and I will replay this intro at the end of the video to give you time to stop the video if you want to capture the information on this page.